Good afternoon, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Just a quick reflection. What are we saying about the attack of Africans on Africa by South African Africans, and where is this coming from? And why do the people whose voice could matter are silent on it? Now, part of the problem is the narrators of our history, government institutions and state organs, which have painted a picture that so-called foreigners, African foreigners on Africa, how absurd is that, are the cause for most of our religious, economic, and social and political unrest. And we have let a lot of statements go unchallenged. We have let the old history continue, that Europeans came and contributed positively to the South African history. Even Jan van Riebeeck is credited with discovering Cape Town, as if it was lost. And 25 years after democracy, we still embrace a Eurocentric narrative around our history, within which our fellow Africans are seen as a nuisance to be tolerated, a necessary evil that we can't do anything about. But then, back to the context of our discussion over the last few months, when state organs such as the Civil Rights Commission have relentlessly since 2015 painted a picture that part of the bigger problem with religious chaos are your so-called foreign preachers. We'll never change how society thinks when, one, the media endorses such stereotypes, two, organs of state unashamedly and ignorantly go public with such statements and take isolated cases involving our African brothers to try to push forth an agenda that is completely biased against our Africanity. Now, the problem is, we know there are allegations against people such as Alf Lukau, Shepherd Bushiri, Omotoso, Bazooka, and other people. But now, if you look at the number of our fellow African preachers and ministries in South Africa, and you look at how isolated the incidents involving our fellow African brothers are regarding the violation of human rights and the abuse of people's trust, you can see that there is an evil hand here manipulating our attitude against our African brothers. And when you begin to use government agencies and state organs, such as the CRL Rights Commission, to drive home such stereotypes, you end up with a society angry with itself. I heard myself well. We end up with a society that is angry with itself because, let me tell you, whether you like it or not, you have to be a fool. You have to be completely naive and stupid to see a Zimbabwean, a Zambian, a Nigerian, a Ghanaian, and Congolese as foreigners on Africa. Let's give you a little bit of history. We have said this before, we shall say it again. In 1884, in the Berlin Convention, Spain, Portugal, England, Germany, Belgium, France, your traditional and historical colonialists, they met in Berlin, and they took the African map, put it out on the board there, and started dividing Africa up. In that convention in 1884, there was not a single African leader. So Europeans decided how far the boundaries were. And today, we have blindly and loyally embraced that as truth, to the extent that you have agencies such as the Civil Rights Commission and a lot of other stupid agencies around the government circles saying that the problem is we need to protect our borders. But while we are protecting our borders, We're protecting Bait Bridge, we're protecting Okavango, we're protecting all Lebombo, we're protecting all borders between South Africa and Eswatini, South Africa and Lesotho, South Africa and Botswana, South Africa and Zimbabwe. The Chinese come here in hundreds of thousands. Europeans have even come to claim this as their land because the ancestors took it forcefully. The French have a free run. If you go to Cape Town, you'd swear you're in a different country. You are a foreigner in your own country. Look at all the Americans and the white Americans, that is. We have properties in Cape Town. I've seen a lot of property magazines in Cape Town selling houses in US dollar values. Now, we are dumb. We are into self-hate because nobody is changing the narrative. But what is worse is, what is the educational system doing to change the story? What is the media doing to change the story? Every time there are incidents, sporadic and random incidents involving our African brothers and our African sisters, we blow it out of proportion. Crime is crime. The same argument we've been posing regarding crime having no religious affiliation or identity is the same we're saying here. Crime knows no racial distinction. Crime is crime. Whether it's committed by an African or European or Chinese. But the problem is, you'll never go. Some of us have traveled the world by God's grace. We speak from a broader perspective. Our context is completely different. We did not need to be taught how the rest of the world looks like. And some of the privileges people have here, we don't have in their continents. But while we don't have those privileges on their continents, we are abusing each other in the name of cleaning our society. It's a shame that, considering the fact that Africa is one home, and considering the dynamic that in the days Europe and all its affiliates and associates oppressed us, discriminated against us, abused us, our fellow Africans stood around us. Lusaka was the home for the ANC. At some stage, Mozambique. We went into Tanzania. We went into Botswana. We went into Lesotho. The South African Defense Force attacked those camps in Botswana. Botswana, the frontline states, suffered and paid a huge cost for harboring us as their brothers. We walked freely their lands. We walked freely there, and we were never treated as dogs the way we're treating our fellow Africans. But the problem is, how are we going to change this when the organs of change, the media, the educational system, state organs, when the organs of change are the ones fueling, they are fueling the hate for fellow Africans. I'm saying to you, much as each perpetrator of these xenophobic attacks is guilty, so is our state, because we are sponsoring the stereotypes that make us hate our own people. The Chinese are all over the place. China malls in every town. The Indians coming from India. The French. The Italians. We love them. We love them. Nobody thinks, when the Civil Rights Commission says millions are siphoned out of this country through foreign preachers, they're not talking about the Roman Catholic Church. They're not talking about the Universal Church, the Brazilian Church. They're not talking about the English Church, the Anglican Church, and the Church of England in South Africa. They're not talking about all these German missions. It's a shame that when the Civil Rights Commission went out to investigate the commercialization of religion, they said nothing about Islam. Islam has held the rest of South Africa at ransom over the halal scam. No, we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about Bushiri's aircraft. I'm not justifying the man's alleged crimes. Because at this stage, everybody is equal before the law. And at this stage, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. The Omotoso trial, we cannot pronounce any opinion on it because we trust our judiciary. But now, what about all these atrocities? Long before Lukao came, I'm not even justifying him, I think he's doing atrocious things. Long before Lukao, Bushiri, Omotoso came, the Universal Church came into the townships, sold our people flowers, sold them cloths, sold them pieces of the cross, sold them a lie, and took billions out of South Africa into Brazil. But no, they were not a foreign church. And the Civil Rights Commission did not investigate the commercialization of religion because there was no black face behind it. It's a shame and a disgrace. And it's something that if we keep silent on long enough, we are guilty. We are guilty by association. And we are guilty by keeping quiet. We need to start rising. And for us to do that, we need to start changing how state organs, how government agencies, how institutions of learning see us. Europe saved us. Europe discovered us. Africa is plundering us. Such stereotypes are the reason we're sitting where we're sitting now. Look at the anger right now. And the irony is, when the Civil Rights Commission raised this anger against so-called foreign churches, which are African, white lawyers, white preachers joined in the chorus. They forgetting themselves they are children of foreigners on the African. We have to change the narrative. And we're not going to change it tolerating systematic demonizing of Africans, because this is systematic. The ruling party only becomes vocal out of embarrassment, but the ruling party is not doing anything active. They're doing nothing active to change the stereotypes. They've not embarked on any program to let the people know that we owe our so-called freedom to these African states, some as far as Nigeria, Ghana. These people carried us. Do you know how much the Nigerian people spend? We're talking billions of US dollars to sponsor the anti-apartheid movement. And the only thing we can do is to demonize them. Because 1, 2, 3 so-called Nigerians are in courts for crimes. It's a shame. Crime has no nationality. Crime has no color. Crime has no race. Crime has no gender. And crime has no religion. We need to change the narrative. And it needs to start now. Woe unto us for being the ungrateful dogs we have turned out to be towards our African brothers and sisters. How do we look Zambians in the face? How do you look Mozambicans, Zimbabweans? How do you look Tanzanians? How do you look the Congolese? How do we look the Nigerians in the face, considering how much they've sacrificed for us and they shared their countries with us when we're kicked out and we're in exile and we're running around homeless? Shame on you. And shame on this government, and shame on the state, and shame on institutions such as the Civil Rights Commission, and shame on institutions such as the Department of Education and Training. May the Lord bless. I'm too ashamed to be in South African.